We're here at Navy Tech in Tallinn, Estonia, where a number of discussions today have centred around Portugal and Portugal's activities in the underwater and surface domain. They're deployed on several operations at the moment, and I'm joined here today by Admiral Mateus, their new Director Ships, who is going to talk to us a little bit more about what they're doing, when and why in the future. Admiral Mateus, welcome to Navy Tech.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Likewise.
Could
Pleasure.
you give us, start with perhaps a bit of an overview about where Portugal's activity is at the moment in terms of its ship and naval acquisition?
Gladly. Well, we are facing a transformation that will endure for several years, which is ongoing as we speak. As we have seen during the conference and presented, we are now in the process of building a multi-role ship, which will become both a scientific and experimentation platform for unmanned vehicles. We definitely have now started the process of building the 6 OPVs, which will be of a completely different type, potentiating not only the ecological footprint of the ships itself to be in line with the current requirements and standards, but also looking at the further use of AI and unmanned vehicles throughout its different functions.
And so what's the difference between the multi-role type ships that we had before, which I thought used to be plug and play, compared to your multi-purpose solution, which is a more modular approach to conducting missions?
This ship will be the test bed for the experimentation of new concepts of operation. Ultimately, this will lead to a substantial set of doctrine and principles that will allow us to actually shape the future generation of frigates and the future generation of combatants, which will encompass all these new dimensions that we are now bringing to light in an integrated manner so that we can exploit them, all of them in combination, whether that's scientific, whether that's more military, whether that's more on the unmanned and the artificial intelligence side, but we will only be able to experiment this commonality and the combinations between them if we have them all on board the same ship. Mm-hmm. That's the rationale.
And so what decisions have you got remaining still about what may or may not go on these ships?
Well, definitely it will be the level of interference that we'll have of certain systems, such as where to use AI extensively, where does AI prove to be rewarding, where does it not prove to be rewarding.
And if I was an industry company watching this with potentially a good solution, what are some of the opportunities that I could do to get those ideas to the Portuguese Navy?
Well, the opportunities are huge, actually. Everything behind this relies on systems, relies on technical solutions, relies on knowledge that industry already has, but ultimately have not been put to sea yet. So I would say the opportunity is there now for the forthcoming years and after that for industry not only to bring the new systems in, but also to support them and to update them, because if you think that a ship normally lasts for 30 plus years, it will mean that there is a lot of potential.
We've looked at some of the surface things. I believe that submarines is something that you're considering at the moment. What's the thoughts around that?
Well, as our Chief of the Navy, Admiral Melo, has expressed, he foresees that we need to have further submarine capability and capacity, and therefore we are aiming at having the political power considering of having 2 more submarines to be deployed in the immense range of operations we nowadays carry on, of which most of them are not even of strict military purpose, but I would say more of a security purpose towards society.
Yeah. And what's the sort of time frame for that? Is that?
Well, we'll be talking within the forthcoming revision of the defense law, so we will be talking within the forthcoming 4 years to have this decision.
Okay.
That's for sure.
We've heard a couple of bits today about some of the lessons, both good and bad, that we're pulling out of the Ukrainian activity in the Black Sea against the Russians, and particularly what an effect they've had from a pretty small navy against a pretty big one. What are some of the big themes that you've taken out and are translating across the capabilities you're looking at?
Well, excellent question. I would say that the biggest lesson we have learned in the immediate is that the numbers do count. So we do prefer to have lesser capable means, lesser capable assets, but more in number. And the reason why is that the quickness in which they are actually put out of service, if you lose a very valuable unit, you have lost a huge amount of capacity and capability. If you lose a lesser unit and you have more to replace, then you have lost very little. So what is changing now, and is changing our approach towards the procurement of assets and the acquisition of assets, is actually searching for enhanced numbers, but focusing on cheaper, lesser capable, but ultimately still capable of executing the missions.
Yeah, because that doesn't quite sit with some of the NATO countries with the bigger assets that are actually looking more at their defensive aid suites, their counter-UAS capabilities, and that's been some of the topics of discussions. So it's interesting you seeing at it coming from a different angle.
You have to. Ultimately, you cannot purchase a €1 billion ship if a small asymmetric threat can put you the ship out of combatant service.
Yeah.
You have to think twice. Perhaps it's better to have a 2-time 100 million frigate or a patrol boat, which will do exactly the same. And that threat can only put one of the two out. So you will still have a remainder of capability and capacity ultimately.
Final question, sir. You've got a finite budget, and you've talked quite a bit about uncrewed systems. Where would you prioritise where you would look to invest over the next couple of years in terms of your air, your surface and your underwater development in some of these vehicles?
Well, definitely on command and control of subsea systems. That is an area where we are still rather limited. Yeah. We are still relying very much on umbilicals or very limited bandwidth below water. Then definitely also on the surface side, on the autonomy and the endurance of surface unmanned vehicles. It's very much dependent on the power source. The batteries still have a limited capacity, and to use alternative sources may not bring the best discretion of those vehicles, especially if you have to rely on combustion engines. So definitely that's another one. On the aerial side, I would say we are now to work a lot on retrieval of deployment and retrieval systems. We have seen that the developments on the new UAVs now enable us nearly to have what we would call TOL systems. Yeah. But at sea, TOL does never occur because the ships are moving. There's a lot of wind.
It's a nice idea.
So it's a nice concept. We need to improve the retrieval of systems. Why? Because the drones ultimately are expensive assets. You don't want to lose them, and if you're in the middle of the ocean, there won't be a replacement for them. Yeah. So that is the second part in which I would invest heavily, and that's both for, I would say, aerial, surface, and subsurface retrieval systems.
Yeah. Admiral, thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your time at Navy Tech, and I look forward to working with you more in the future.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you very much.